Hello there. I've decided to do a video on the airbag resistance too high on my BMW 2015, and it's an F30 class, and I've got the dreaded resistance too high for the airbag. So what I decided to do is to tear the whole thing apart, steering wheel and everything else, and get this down to taking off. I have the airbag here. This is an M class sport package airbag, and this one has the dual airbags 1 and 2, and this is the vent, and these are actually resistors that when the thing gets into a crash, it will fire these two and then vent if it's really, depends what type of crash that you do, which you can read about that thing. But sodium nitrate is apparently in a solid state and gets heated up and right away inflates the airbag in less than a minute, or less than a second actually, sorry. In any event, what I did here is I took this clock spring out, and I discovered that these resistors here are 2.2 ohms. So I simulated 2.2 ohms, taking this connector off the back of the clock spring, and by putting 2.2 ohms, and these are all for airbag 1, 2, and the vent. And these go down to the crash module, which is underneath the steering wheel housing here, and I'll try to show you it. Just have to turn on some light here and see if we can get underneath here and show you where the crash module is. Just right there, and that connector right there is where all the wires go in to fire off the individual airbags. 6 of them are going up to the steering wheel. They're feeding along back up here and coming out right here. So what I did is I pulled these off the back of the clock spring here, which has this connector in the back. That's where it plugs into, is there. This connector here is for all the other things that are on this clock spring. This version here, the whole thing. So by putting those resistors on right now, my car is on, and there is no airbag alarm here because these are simulating the airbag. So now this is verifying that the wiring going down to the crash module and it's all working properly. The crash module is registering that it sees airbags, so there's no high resistance alarms here. So what you want to do now is you want to see if this clock spring is good. And from what they say, the clock springs tend to break because they're always rotating back and forth. Well, what you can do now is you can take these resistors off of here. You can plug it back into the back of that clock spring, and this is where this airbag connector here plugs into this part of the clock spring. You put resistors here, these 2.21 resistors here. And so now, if you do that, and it's not getting the airbag high resistance alarm still, now you verified that the clock spring is okay. And the problem is the airbag, which you can't check with a normal multimeter. And I did put a multimeter across these things to see just what kind of current would flow through a normal state. And these are transistors that are down, they're called MOSFETs, and they don't measure normal resistance and voltage. They're semiconductor transistors, so normal multimeter doesn't apply, but I did pick up a 0.06 milliamp current flow going through these things and next to nothing for voltage drop, which, if that's true, makes sense if you use a multimeter on this thing. A multimeter generates almost 0.2 milliamps compared to 0.06 milliamps, and that might possibly be enough to heat these things up and fire them. So I can see what they're talking about. Don't use a multimeter on these things. But you have to do this troubleshooting technique to try to separate to see which these are. So if you pull these off, plugged it into the clock spring, and you got these things plugged in, and there's still no high resistance alarm, it's the airbag. So let's just show you. I'm going to pull one of these things off of here right now because they're going into this car here. And there you go. Driver restraint system malfunction because the resistance is now too high going into the crash module. So that works. Thanks for watching.